a sad and gloomy day outside, rainy, and the weather kind of describes our mood here today in the locker room, at least for this segment. It's the final edition of TinChattin for 2018. The play-by-play voice of the Fort Wayne Tin Caps, Mike Maas, has graced us with his presence in the Fox 55 studio. And Mike, we were hoping that we'd be talking playoff baseball on this Friday, but just not meant to be. Of course, talked last week, and we said it would all come down to that final three-game series against West Michigan. It sure did. Saturday, the Tin Caps win easily, meaning all they needed to do was win one of the two remaining games on Sunday or Monday. Both of those games, they have leads, and in both of those games, West Michigan comes back and rips the heart out of the Tin Caps, and the final one came in extra innings on Labor Day, and kind of a bitter taste in your mouth to end the season if you're a Tin Caps fan, but that's kind of, you talked about it a little bit off air, that's kind of who this team has been all year. They've had leads and haven't always been able to put those games away, and in the end, it came back to bite them on Labor Day.
And I mentioned before we started taping the segment, Peter, that I want to go back to opening night, first Thursday in April, back in Eastlake, Ohio. Tin Caps sent out a native Buckeye by the name of Nick Margavich to the mound, and he goes 5 2/3 innings, and he gives up no runs, 1 hit, walked 1, struck out 9. Tin Caps had a 2-0 lead going to the bottom of the 9th. Captain scored 3 runs in the bottom of the 9th, and they won the opening game of the season, and that seemed to set the tone, though little did we know then what would happen for this team as the season ran its course. And I mentioned to you off air, I had a number of people that have texted me or emailed me, a couple of face-to-face people during the week. What the heck happened? Why, why couldn't they finish the deal? I don't know why the Tin Caps couldn't seal the deal, but I brought up opening night with Margavich starting, and the Tin Caps unable to hang on to a lead in the 9th inning. We talked last week about the season-long 10-day, 11-game road trip. The Tin Caps had the lead in 9 of those 11 games, but only won 4 of them. Then they came home for the final 3 home games against Lake County. They won game 1, got blown out 12-4 in game 2, had the lead but lost game 3. So now you go to West Michigan, and the scenario was simple. Whoever won 2 of the 3 games between the White Caps and the Tin Caps would get that second playoff spot in the East. And again, last Saturday night was great, 10-3 win. But then Sunday, you have a lead, you can't hold it. Labor Day, you have a lead, and you can't hold it.
Yeah, truly, I mean, a game of inches. I mean, you hear that phrase all the time when it relates to baseball, but you mentioned it came down to 1 game. The Tin Caps literally needed to just win 1 more game to get in the playoffs, and so many close losses down the stretch where a ball falls in here or a catch is made here or a strike is thrown here rather than a ball, and it could be a totally different outcome. But, Mike, when I think about this team, and I'm going to ask you here in a moment to kind of reflect on the 2018 season as a whole, but with all the adversity that they dealt with in the second half, players being called up, injuries, I mean, they were just absolutely ravished. You talk about Luis Campusano, who was an all-star, Tirso Ornelas, one of their best players, Robbie Podorski, one of their best players, Mackenzie Gore was never really able to get fully healthy and stay healthy for the season. He was obviously talked about a lot coming into the season as one of their best pitchers. Luis Patino reaches his innings limit. Osvaldo Hernandez. I mean, they had so many guys that were put on the shelf that they really needed down the stretch that they had to kind of call younger guys up to replace. To me, they shouldn't have even been in a position to make the playoffs with all the adversity that they dealt with. But somehow, they stayed resilient. They won just enough games to put themselves in a position to make it. When you reflect on the 2018 season, when 10 years from now, when someone asks you about the 2018 Fort Wayne Tin Caps, what kind of things will come to mind about this group?
I think one of the things we'll look back 5 or 10 years from now, and we talk about this 2018 Tin Cap team, was the resiliency that the players showed. There were times they got blown out. Talk about the 12-4 loss against Lake County, second last home game of the season. But many a time they would fall behind, but they would not give up. And there were many situations that you would have either the time or perhaps go ahead run, if not at the plate in the on-deck circle. And, you know, then the last at-bat. Oh, so close, but yet oh, so far. Had we been able to win either Sunday night or Monday, we would have been the only team in full season minor league baseball or even the major leagues that would have qualified for the playoffs 9 times in a 10-year stretch from 2009 through 2018. Would have been a tremendous accomplishment, but even 8 out of 10 isn't all bad.
And I think there's no question that you mentioned the organization, the job that Mike Nutter has done, the entire front office, the whole staff with the Tin Caps. There's no question that they run a clean operation. And obviously, you mentioned it as fans. You know, you get to a point where you're used to seeing the Tin Caps in the playoffs every year. I mean, and when they don't make it, there's obviously a lot of disappointment. You mentioned you've got a lot of texts and calls about why this, why that. But the reality is, every year in minor league baseball, there's going to be a new group of players here. You know, it's not going to be, Fernando Tatis isn't going to be here 4 or 5 years in a row. So obviously the expectation for the organization is make the playoffs every year, win championships, because that's what they've done. But the reality is every year it's a new group of players. This group happened to be extremely young and had a lot of adversity to deal with, and they couldn't get it done. But I'm curious. I'm going to throw a couple of ones at you here that I didn't tell you about beforehand, but I know you'll handle them well. You always deal with a curveball well, Mike. Offensive Player of the Year, Pitcher of the Year for the Fort Wayne Tin Caps this year. Let's hand out some awards here in our final edition of TinChattin for the whole season.
Well, let's go the second part first. Pitcher of the Year, which is going to become Pitchers of the Year.
You're going with 2?
I'm going with 2.
Okay.
Osvaldo Hernandez is one of the 5 Cubans that was in Fort Wayne last year.
Yeah.
And he was tied for the league leading wins in the Midwest League with 11. He had 11-4 record. He had a 1.81 earned run average. And so Hernandez from the starting role, Travis Radke, who was the de facto closer in the first half and part of the second half, finished the year 4th in saves in the Midwest League with 13. Overall best hitter is a toss-up. Had Campusano stayed healthy, I might have leaned towards Luis. But since he wasn't able to play probably the final quarter of the season, I guess I'll give it to Jack Sawinski.
The players have given us, you know, a lot of good memories here in 2018. You have as well, Mike. We always appreciate your time. You spend a lot of time with us every Friday afternoon. Usually we tape the segments in the afternoon and they air in the evening, but we always appreciate the research that you put into it, the time that you give us, and another great season of TinChattin. And no surprise, you're not flaking out on us for next year, right? No surprise announcements to be made here on the final
I'll get
edition.
some head and shoulders for the flakes, but other than that, no. You know, I'm just grateful, and I have no plans. Lord willing, we'll be back next year.
Well, we certainly can't wait. It'll be here before you know it. You know it will. The seasons go quickly, and we'll be talking Tin Caps baseball again before you know. Mike, thank you again. Appreciate all that you do for us, and we'll see you in April at Parkview Field.
I look forward to it, and again, I think I can speak on behalf of the Tin Caps. Thanks to you and Justin and everyone here at the station for allowing us to spend time together on Friday nights to talk about Fort Wayne Tin Caps baseball. It's greatly appreciated, and as I said, let's get going with 2019.
It's our pleasure, believe me. He's Mike Maas, Fort Wayne Tin Caps play-by-play man. My name is Peter Hood. That'll do it for this edition and this season of TinChattin. We'll be back with lots to talk about in April. We hope you'll join us then. For now, though, stick around. Much more coming up in the locker room right after this break.